some of you are here today to learn, perhaps for the first time, about what you can do in this area.
I present to you Victoria Mason.
30 years ago, we didn't have meetings like this, we didn't share in this way, we didn't invest in the really important work. So that, to me, is making progress. I hope that the contribution that we've all been able to make will ensure that the RSC continues to have that impact going forward.
I think the space in which we work is always evolving, and the conversations we're having today, the presentations we're having today, the people who are here represent that. And actually, there's so much work to do, so that actually it feels like one is almost working at the cutting edge, and the innovation and the things that people are doing is always changing. So for me, it's very impressive, and it's very encouraging. And I think, I mean, that's we cannot behave as if we don't actually exist in that space where all of those things are happening. But nobody ever said that actually taking this view and driving this work is going to be easy. I think there is a sense that there's always been those who probably didn't think that this was something that we should be doing, but it's just been surfaced a little bit more. I guess, in a sense, that the question is, how do we respond to that? And for me, if we are convinced, as we are, that this is the right thing to do, it's a fair thing to do, it's a reasonable thing to do, then we just carry on. And sometimes, actually, you don't need 100% of everybody agreeing with you to be able to do something. Just go with those who are with you, and we can still make a difference, and that's what we want to do.
My name is Vanya Dimitrova. I am Professor of Human-Centered AI at the University of Leeds. I'm a computer scientist, but I'm representing here the EPSSE funded Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Hub. First of all, I think I was impressed by the overall tone and sentiment of the event. And I was also impressed how serious the Royal Society of Chemistry is about inclusion and diversity, and how much progress has been made. I also was impressed by the way how strategic the initiatives have been approached, like disability and accessibility, socioeconomic status now is being brought in, gender earlier on. So this kind of evidence-driven approach and this commitment to actually truly make a change to culture, which is really inspiring. In the troubled times we live in, I think our values are challenged and our legacy is challenged. And I think we need to think carefully about what we have delivered, and we also need to show more and more, so there's more and more need for evidence-driven approach to show that we have made a change. So your Inclusion and Diversity Award, which we gave today, was an example, like 10 years of commitment of focusing on a specific problem, and you could just see how they can deliver the change with commitment, consistency, and systematic way. And adapting to what is needed for the community. I think that events like today are more important for us to show what we truly value and make sure that we preserve it. But there was a recent SAGE report it was very recent, it was last week, on equality, diversity and inclusion, equity, diversity and inclusion, and it's really exactly, I resonate with that. We need to show that if we want to make sure that the science is embedded and it's for everyone, we need to make sure that we diversify our teams, and we need to make sure that everyone is welcome and included.
I'm here today as a representative of the Inclusion and Diversity Committee. I've been on the committee about a year, and I think in that year I've realised there's so much to learn and so much good practice to be able to share. So all of us coming together today has been really important to help us try and reflect on what we've been doing, what we want to do next, and actually just really share and learn from each other. So it's been great so far. I think sometimes because of the challenges that you face in this area, it can feel quite lonely and quite difficult to do on your own. And actually creating this community of practice and this shared endeavour and shared learning actually really, I think, helps give all of us the confidence, but also empowers us to go back to wherever we are from across the UK and try to take that learning back with us and try and embed it where we work as well.
I think what have I gained? I think there's a sense of community, I think, which is really, really important. You're seeing these kind of cultural shifts within the world at the moment, and I think right now is a time for us to actually start coming together as a community to make sure we're fostering an inclusive environment, but also advocating and championing for it. And so every time I come to an event like this, there's always some things, little things that I learn. I mean, for me, I have a bias at the moment towards, I have a bias towards disability, being chair of the Disability Network. And I found the RSCs, the reporting back of what they're doing with disability and where they're going, and kind of it gets me thinking as well as how I, as a member of the RSC, and including STFC and UKRI in general, how we can start engaging not only just with the RSC itself, but a wider community to help foster inclusive environments.
Although I am a scientist, I actually think that the most striking thing today is the importance of data, because we can talk about our stories and usually we go by feeling for these things, but actually data is important. So if we can gather those data and have them presented in a nice way as we've seen today, that would make a much bigger impact. So when we all come together, we can take different points of view and understand other people. While we might have been already working with them, but we don't know what are their experiences. So when we gather together, it's really important that we listen to people.
Well, it's an amazing day, it's an amazing opportunity to come together with a community that has worked a lot, around equality, diversity and inclusion, and hear results from the work that the Royal Society of Chemistry is doing, results from the LGBTQ+ inclusion grants. So it has been a really great day.
Okay. And what are your key takeaways from today?
Well, it's hard, I think, to condense them, but I think one of them is that there's still a lot of work that we need to do. So I would hope that events like this kind of drive forward momentum for change. We need investment, we need resources, and I hope to see them in the future. Thinking about other projects, I was really pleased to see that we found kind of similar things, and these kind of strengthen the case for working on queer inclusion on my side. And I hope again that this kind of message goes out from here and the institution here that we need to do work.
And finally, why do you think events like today are important?
Well, I think they are especially important, within the current climate. We see that a lot of countries are kind of rolling back on EDI and inclusivity, and I think these kind of spaces then are very, very necessary, because it's a way to keep raising profile for this kind of work, keep saying, we have problems, diversity and inclusion is important, we need to fix these challenges, and this is kind of what we need to create more inclusive chemistry and science. So yeah, keep doing these events.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an absolutely fantastic day, and we've heard a load of really inspiring and particularly moving talks as well. I think that there's been some ups and downs. We've heard some difficult information, but we've also had some really positive ideas, suggestions, and lots of homework, I think, to take away. Two of the things that really struck me were the suggestions that STEM organisations need to work in concert and synergistically in order to really promote equity in STEM, and that was something I thought that was really important, and that's something that we all need to think about how we can deliver that.
I think it's been incredibly helpful to have a gathering of friends, of people that are really passionate about this area, who really understand the importance of EDI to the quality of the research that we do, no matter what field, no matter what area you do it, and learning from each other as to how we can best do that. I think things I'm going to take away from today are the importance of intersectionality. That granularity of data is really important in these areas. That your experience as a disabled white woman is not the same as your experience as a disabled black woman. And that is important for us to drill down into, so that we have solutions and support that is genuinely relevant and useful to all of those groups.
I think it's absolutely critical that we have events like this. It raises the profile of EDI. It states that EDI has the backing of the Royal Society of Chemistry. It states that this is critical for the future of chemistry, that this is not an optional extra, this is something that is a duty upon every single person in society, and that RSC and its members are at the forefront of this agenda, and that's incredibly exciting.
I think what today's event highlights is the breadth of challenge and opportunity that comes from focused work and engagement around equality, equity, diversity and inclusion. So what we see is, over the course of a number of years, how the Royal Society of Chemistry has helped to start up and initiate data conversations to help us understand what's happening, but then proactively look at research as a means of informing our understanding of the challenges, responses to the challenges, and the potential for impact. And so whether that's around disability, social inclusion, gender inequality, racial inequality, and sexual orientation and trans inclusion, what we're seeing is a systemic approach to using a positional function of a learned society like the Royal Society of Chemistry to pull together different stakeholders and to figure out actually what are the issues and then what can we do about them, and then trying to figure out actually where's the learning and the sharing of better or good practice.
Is there any learnings that you're taking back home with you today?
Well, first of all, we need to galvanize ourselves, because at the moment the agenda is under a little bit of attack and there's lots of conversations and challenges out there. What today has allowed us to do is to actually take stock, look at actually the evidence base. The data doesn't lie. So as a takeaway, the data doesn't lie, and actually understand that there are issues still. So inclusion doesn't happen by chance. It happens because we understand that there's exclusion, and then we can take concrete measures by engaging in research to understand what's going on for different communities and then to figure out what we can do. The other part is that equality's work is work, and it's everybody's work. So there's research out there that talks about the fact that different communities who are minoritized end up having to carry the burden of that work. What we need to be able to do is to say that actually equality's work is work, but it's everybody's work. And that includes both the organization taking that responsibility, but also individuals in leadership roles understanding how their inclusive leadership practice can help change the organizational culture to be more inclusive and representative. Because at the end of the day, inclusive science is better science, and that doesn't happen by accident.
Could you please tell me why events like these are important for not only you, but the wider community?
Because it provides focus. If one provides an opportunity for us to come together and to share our practice and our network, it's bringing together like-minded people, because sometimes this work is done in isolation. By drawing us together, we're able to actually feed off each other in terms of our knowledge, our experiences, learn, network, and think about potential future collaborations. And then finally galvanize ourselves, because when we go back and we're watching the news at the moment, there's lots of challenges around what's happening in society. But in environments like this, the Royal Society of Chemistry is actually facilitating knowledge exchange and a community of practice that can actually strengthen our responses and our abilities to meet the challenges of an inclusive community and making that a reality.